That has to get you curious about the next photo.
Going to risk moving it just a little bit more. And I'm going to quickly pass a couple of these around just so you see. And if you would move them left to right just so that you can handle them up. They're not precious. Well, they are. Sorry, they're precious. They're not delicate. And for this one, I just want you to have a look at this here. This little bit. Pass it this way if you would so that it follows. And then I'm going to need them back fairly shortly. So, my name's Tom Murphy. I imagine a number of you know my website, boards.ie, or adverts.ie. We've been going 18 years. We're one of the biggest websites in the country. We're probably one of the longest websites running in the country. Most of you might not recognize me at all because I almost never do those founder fireside chat things because I think they are odious. But Owen cornered me and said, will you do a talk at Kong? And I said, oh, okay, right, fine. I said, but on one condition. I'm sick of hearing these founders come along and tell you, oh, if only, just do what I did and never stop and never doubt yourself and, it'll all be great and you'll be fine and wonderful. Look at me, I'm so successful. I had my vision and blah, blah. You're like, get off the stage, right? No way. That's not me. So I wanted to do a piece on failure and talk about our very poor relationship with failure and innovation in this country. So I put that in my pocket. And the first thing I wanted to always put, if I was going to do a talk, I'd put this XKCD sign up because for every person that's ever been up here going, be like me, never quit, it's like there's 100 people I'd back on, geez, I should have quit. There we go. So, first of all, there's a few that I'm not going to send around. This I had to prize from my mother's hands, so it was one of the first pieces I ever turned, and we'll get onto that later. But I kind of sneaked it out of the house so she wouldn't notice. And I wanted to talk about our relationship with failure, which in the Irish context, for those of you who are not Irish, probably the same as us, is that your relationship with failure is like this. Right? You try and you succeed or you fail. And when I grew up, if you failed, you got hit with a stick. Right? So you tried damn your best to get like the success stuff, not the fail stuff. But this was it. It was a dichotomy. You tried and you either passed or you failed. We actually have honours and failures. And that's a very poor relationship with technology, with trying. And innovation, without wanting to be a sixth-year debating student, the word comes from novus, new, and innovare, which is to replace an old system with a new system. So it's basically to try and replace an old system with a new system. And if I said to you, I'm going to try and pick up this piece of wood, you'd look at me strange and go, well, what's the problem? Right? Why? I could pick it up 1,000 times and I would never fail at picking it up. So you'd say, well, why would you try? I mean, there's no try. Because the word try has inherently in it the concept of failure, or else it doesn't make sense. We'd all go, huh? So when you try to do something, you inherently risk failure. So this is a very poor model of how we have a relationship with failure. This is much more the kind of relationship we should have with failure. Is that you try, you fail, you have some success, you try something else, you fail, you go back, you try, you fail. Eventually you kind of end up more towards this way, hopefully. But I'm a mathematician, my training is in mathematics. This is much more like what a mathematician would write, which is for n greater than or 0 or equal to 0, there is a number of failures between try and success. And so you try and maybe you're successful, but more likely you have to go through a series of failures and eventually get down to success. So, why the wood turning? Well, it gives us something tangible that I want to talk about to demonstrate 4 different points I have about failure. So, I am kind of obsessive with stuff, and if that hasn't come across already, so I got really drunk one night. I got like horrendously drunk. The sort of drunk where at 2 a.m, you go online and you buy a lathe, right? To put that in context, prior to this I had never screwed one piece of wood to another piece of wood. I have never put a shelf up or a picture Nobody in my family does wood turning or woodworking of any description, and I didn't study it in school. Right? But I really thought, I'll give that a go, I can have a go. And I arrived 3 days later, a gigantic cast iron lathe, and I looked at the guy and I went, I did what? And he went, you bought this, good luck, bye. So I looked at it and it said, connect the headstock to the drive shaft. And I went, this looks like a trip to Beaumont Hospital. So I rang a bunch of people and I said, can you possibly teach me how to use this? And eventually a guy in my local area who's 44 years a master turner said no. But if you come around, I'll show you how not to lose a finger to it. And you live only around the corner from me. So I went round to him, and 18 months later he was still teaching me. So failure when you're turning wood turns at about between 1 and 2,000 revs per minute. And it's gripped on this little thing here. Can you see that there, little thing? So there's a very strong grip, grabs it, and then spins it. Spins it very, very fast. And then you introduce a very sharp tool into here, and into here, very slowly and very carefully, and it will eventually make a bowl. However, as you can see, this one failed. And it failed at about 1,400 revs per minute, right, which is very fast. And what had happened was it lost containment. It lost structural integrity, and the piece flew so fast over to about where Owen is that it didn't drop in gravitational pull at all, hit the wall and knocked all of my tools off of that wall. So that is how bad failure at 1,400 revs can be. Unfortunately, this piece was still being gripped here and was still going around and turned into like a hideous death machine, as you might imagine. And worse than that, it's now lopsided. It has lots of mass over here and, well, no mass over here since that mass is now over there. And it is now beginning to do this, which means that the whole lathe is now beginning to do this and turns into a giant monster which chases you around the workshop while you desperately try and reach around it to hit the power button and stop it, okay? Which is why we have 2 different power buttons on the end of our lathe, so that no matter which end you're stuck on, you can quickly kill the thing. So, let me see. So, the first lesson is success can lead to failure. So I took to wood turning, like I take everything kind of obsessively, and I started to compete. And I competed in my local chapter. You can actually compete at this stuff. They have judging rules, etc. And I went to my local club and I put in a piece and I came second. And I was delighted with myself. And then I started to compete for the whole year. So you get points for every month, and your best 10 months are added up. And I had arrived on month 3, so I had 10 remaining months in order to score. So I started to compete. And I competed, and I competed, and competed, and competed. And eventually in the Christmas piece, I competed, and I won by 1 point. The first time, first year novice. You're all very, you're a little panto crowd, aren't you?
Oh, no, we're not.
Oh, yes, you are. So, I competed and by 1 point won. First time ever a novice has won the Turner of the Year in one of 3 chapters in Dublin. And I had taken a piece, this piece here, and I entered into the Nationals. And I went to the Nationals with my piece, and I won my section in my Nationals, in the national competition. Which is the first time wood turner has walked in and won that particular section. The section gives you 3 years you're allowed to compete in it nationally. So no matter how long you've been turning, great, you can compete in this section for 3 of your first years. Wood turners are very old. I'm considered the boy is my nickname, right? They've all been turning, like my instructor's been turning for 47 years, like at this point, and I'm 47 years old, so that'll give you an idea. So I won, and I came back to my instructor and I said, I've won Turner of the Year in the local chapter, and I've won, the first time a novice has won the novice section. And he said, that's great, I'm delighted for you. I said, what's wrong, And Charlie is 78, very wise man, and he said, it's just that it might be the worst thing that ever happened to you. Wow, okay. Okay, well. Right, onwards, going to win it again next year. Go, go, go. So I went into my workshop to start to turn. and every idea was just not good enough. It wouldn't win. And I started to, instead of doing the kind of the creative and crazy stuff, I started to do the boring, the sensible, the safe. I started to come third and fourth and fifth because I wasn't being me. I wasn't doing my stuff, the crazy. And I was playing it safe, and I won nothing. I didn't win anything that year. And I went to the Nationals, and I didn't place anywhere. And I walked away, and I thought, what the hell? What the hell just happened? So my success had turned into failure because I was afraid to fail. Every time I went into the workshop, I was afraid to fail. And halfway through the year, I stopped competing because I was afraid to fail. Because I didn't want to fail, therefore I didn't want to play. I had been so successful and had gotten such a reputation that I wanted to protect that. I wanted to protect that, and so I didn't want to play because I might lose. And that was when success turned into failure. And failure can be success. So wherever a piece has gone, where's my black, there we go. Okay, didn't get very far.
Oh, went around.
Oh, went around, okay. And there's a bowl as well somewhere. There's oh yeah, there we go. Thank you. Okay. Thank you very much. So I went to Charlie, and he was about to throw this in the fire, this piece. And I said, what are you doing? He said, oh, I've just a rough form I wanted to turn. I said, oh, it's perfect. It's exactly what I wanted for an idea I have for doing some artwork, some inking and stenciling and that. And he said, fine. So I took it away, and I promised myself, in the third year, I will just go and I will make a mess of things. And I said, I don't care. He said, it's not finished, it's not flat, it's not polished, it's not sanded. I said, it doesn't matter, I'm going to mess it up, so it doesn't matter. You're going to throw it in the fire, what do you care? So I took it, and I did it, and I stenciled it, I cut out the dragon, and I put it down, I did the ink work, painted over sprayed over the black, and took it all off, and it was bloody great. And I was like, I meant this to be a failure, and now it's only, it's not finished, and it's not polished, and it's not all the rest of it. So this was one of those times when I was trying to fail. I gave myself permission to fail. I went into my workshop to saying, I'm going to fail, and I produced something that I actually kind of really like. So if you give yourself permission to fail, if you go in and say, look, I'm not going to produce anything today, but I'm going to learn. I'm going to find out what works and what doesn't work, and I'm only going to get that if I can play, if I can throw stuff around and make stuff and smash stuff. So that's when failure can turn into success. You can find something that just works, right? Because you're willing to just go, whatever, fine, I've wasted it, I'm going to throw it away and have a go. That would be, let me see about this. So you can see in this piece the genesis of this piece, where I've used some of the similar techniques, refined a little bit, and so I've learned how to do this. But you might notice with this one, let me show you, the next lesson is innovation is a goal, success is a process, and failure is a step. Okay, so your goal is to do something new. Success is going to be a number of steps to get to that goal. And failure is just going to be one of those steps, almost certainly, unless you're brilliant. I'm not, but I'm going to fail on the way. And I have to understand that this is not the end of a process. It is a step in the process towards my goal. Right? So you can see, say this piece, you can see that where I'm beginning to learn. This is actually the color of the wood, by the way. This isn't colored. Wood comes in all sorts of crazy colors, but this is me learning the process of how to go about producing these pieces. So I do first a wash from red to yellow with an airbrush. I put down the stencils. I then airbrush over them and produce this piece. Now, the observant of you will notice that this piece has a piece of spalted elm at the bottom, whereas this piece has a piece of Padauk, as it's called. Right? The reason for that is because I went to put a finish on this and discovered that the finish reacts with the lacquers that I've been using, and after about 10 hours of various work, I had managed to produce this. And that you didn't hear me screaming is only a testament to how soundproofed my workshop is. This produced all sorts of horrendous fog out of my workshop, which isn't all that unusual because of the various things I do. So, the fact is that you're going to have to learn the steps to your innovation, and one of those steps, or many of those steps, may well be failure along the way. The difference between innovation and just goofing about is taking notes. Right? I've a scientist friend who says the difference between science and goofing about is planning the goofing about. Right? But in our case, if you're just goofing about and you're not taking notes of what's working and what's not working, then you're destined, like, as they say, my favorite Homer Simpson quote is, anyone who doesn't pay attention to history is destined to something. And so I want to show you, year 3 comes. Halfway through year 2, I've stopped trying because I'm failing. And I come to this conclusion, I realize Charlie was right. I have become so enamored with success that I'm no longer willing to risk being successful. So I decide to go into my workshop and do stuff. This is a piece of spalted beech, which was so rotten that I clawed my hand through part of it. It was that soft and rotten. But I have put in some hardener and red dye in it in order to harden the wood up a little bit. I then made a bath and poured a certain amount of epoxy resin of various different colours into the piece. Let that set, mounted it on my lathe, which was terrifying, turned it, turned my workshop into effectively a gay wedding, because it streams off in no time. Then I took it and I submersed it in another dyed hardener, and I put it into a vacuum chamber, which sent it to half an atmosphere. That's halfway to space. It is admittedly the easy half. Right? But so what I'm doing here is sucking the air out so that the air comes out of the wood and the hardener and dye will go in. Right? So my point with all of this is that if you think I just like woke up one day and produced this process, like you've been in my workshop sniffing some things, okay? So eventually I turned it, and my idea was that I'd taken this piece of wood up, I'd looked at it and I said, this is only good for the fire. And I thought, oh, fire. Yeah, I wonder if I could make this look like it's actually going on fire. And when I got the idea, I thought, oh, it'd be like the spark of life. So I'll turn myself a very fine stem, a number of extremely fine tiny little bowls, which I then smashed up and created, sanded them and created a flower from. And that's the piece you can see here. So this is, if I can catch it in the light. This is half wood, half resin, dyed. The finish is super glue, which if you smear, yeah, that took a little finding out, I can tell you. If you smear super glue on things and then let it go hard, the proteins form long chains, and you can polish them off, and they'll form a beautiful reflective surface on it. So I submitted this into the competition last September and won first place again. So first time anyone who has won for 2 out of 3 of their years. And that would be a wonderful place to leave this story if this talk was about success. But it's not. It's about failure. And it's about trying to convince you that nobody wants to fail, right? So failure can bring you places that you would otherwise never go. Okay, so think about that for a second. When you're forced to face failures, when you're forced to overcome them, right, they will, by definition, bring you to places that you would not otherwise have chosen to go. Right? So remember my piece, the piece that came off of it? So when I needed a base for my piece for my mother, this is what I use. Rescued the piece. I would never have thought of doing that had it not exploded on my lathe and shot across the room, nearly killing me. So that's my idea, big idea for you, is to consider that success can be failure, failure can be success. Innovation is a goal. Success is a process, and failure is a step in that process. And that ultimately, failure can take you somewhere you would not otherwise go, and therefore discover something you would not otherwise have thought of. I'll leave you with one of my favorite quotes on the matter. Thank you very much. Oh, the last one. This. People go, how did you get it on there? How did it? What? You don't get it on there. It's cut on there. You have this piece, and the reason why I brought this up for fail is because in between the two there is a stem, a flaw, and every time I try to turn this circle, it snapped. It snapped, it snapped, it snapped, and I had one day left to get this piece into the competition.